Welcome to the 700 Club. Thanks for joining us. A de facto town square that is extremely important to the future of civilization. Well, that's how Elon Musk describes Twitter. With this takeover, the social media giant, the billionaire is promising to make it an open platform and to restore banned accounts.
Twitter currently censors Republican members of Congress at a rate of 53-1 compared to Democrats. It also suspends conservatives 21 times more often than liberals. Many believe that Musk will change all that. Tara Mergener brings us the story.
Musk, a self-proclaimed free speech absolutist, has been critical of Twitter's picking and choosing which posts get deleted. His involvement is welcomed by those accusing the platform of censorship, while making its defenders uneasy. With around 200 million users worldwide, the deal could reshape social media.
Twitter has become kind of the de facto town square.
If approved, Musk plans to take the company private.
My strong intuitive sense is that having a public platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is extremely important to the future of civilization.
Twitter founder and ex-CEO Jack Dorsey seems happy, writing, "Taking it back from Wall Street is the correct first step." The platform has been a political battleground for years, accused of taking partisan action against various subjects and discussions, including medical information and even spiritual thoughts. Pastor Dave Scarlett saw his ministry's account banned after this Good Friday tweet showing Jesus was retweeted by rapper MC Hammer to his massive following.
It went absolutely viral. And then literally within an hour, they took us down without any reason, any warning, any strikes. We've never been in a timeout or anything like that. And we were just done.
Just last week, a new report highlighted more than 600 instances where people who criticized President Biden on Twitter or Facebook had comments deleted or accounts banned. And critics say Twitter goes after Republicans far more than Democrats.
Twitter and Facebook censor Republican members of Congress at a rate of 53-1 compared to Democrats. Twitter suspends conservatives 21 times more often than liberals.
While Musk could reopen the door to President Trump's banned Twitter account, the former commander-in-chief says he won't return. Under his leadership, Musk is promising transparency, a public algorithm, and to restore banned accounts.
We don't know why some people are being shadow banned, which is kind of the new term that's been coined lately. And so what Elon wants to do in pursuit of this idea of just kind of this universal good of free speech is to say, we're going to make these things open. We're going to have Twitter be open sourced.
While conservatives have been happy with Musk's takeover, many in the establishment media have been highly critical and question Musk's ability to run the company.
It is not at all clear here, Stephanie, that his incredible popularity on Twitter, right? He has over 80 million followers, in any way qualifies him or prepares him to run the party.
Many conservatives blasted Twitter in 2020 for silencing certain political views, including the New York Post's report on Hunter Biden's laptop before the president's election. Skeptics on the left are now threatening to jump ship as Musk prepares to take the helm.
He's routinely over the years tried to shut down his critics, silence them. He's used Twitter to savage them.
But after Twitter approved his offer, Musk himself tweeted, "I hope that even my worst critics remain on Twitter, because that is what free speech means." It's expected to take time for changes to begin at Twitter. Musk's purchase still needs to be finalized, which could take several months. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
I think it's worth pointing out the reaction to this takeover and the contrast in the reaction to Jeff Bezos, another libertarian, taking over the Washington Post. With that takeover, I think the Democrats thought that they were safe, that Bezos wasn't going to change the editorial policy of the Washington Post to somehow be in favor of Republicans. With Twitter, you have the exact opposite, the condemnation of billionaires taking over media companies, taking them private, doing these things. Somehow it's anti-free speech, and you're hearing a lot from the left saying they're going to leave Twitter. Now, when you look at the past election, I think it was quite clear both Facebook and Twitter were on the Democrat side, and they seemed to have an editorial policy for that and seemed to want to ban conservative voices. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could trust platforms and we could trust big tech to say, no, hands off on the politics, we're going to allow free speech, and we're not going to try to censor voices in any political election? That would be wonderful. We don't have that right now, and we're seeing conservative viewpoints, divergent viewpoints routinely throttled, and why is that allowed to happen? Now, the reason it's allowed is that they're not under the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights only covers the government. So is this something for Congress to take a role in, and how do we ensure free speech over these marketplaces, because they have become the de facto town square. And in that town square concept, you do have the Bill of Rights, because now that's public. Now, will Congress actually say Facebook is a public platform, Twitter is a public platform, and will they extend constitutional guarantees? That remains to be seen. Do we have the political will to do it? And can we actually get the two parties to agree that we should have open platforms? So I, for one, applaud this. I applaud the sentiment behind it, that we need to have town squares where freedom of speech is recognized. All voices are able to have an equal access to that platform, because the fundamental of free speech is not censorship. It's in the competition of ideas that the best ideas always emerge. And in that, you're never afraid of divergent viewpoints, divergent opinions. You allow them to freely interact, and you can freely critique them, or you can freely agree with them. That's the basis of the principle that the Founding Fathers had, and we should follow that in everything we do. In other news, the head of the Department of Homeland Security is facing tough questions from Congress about protecting our southern border. Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, Alejandro Mayorkas says the U.S. has effectively managed the border crisis under the Biden administration, but that is not flying with critics. And now both Republicans and Democrats are raising concerns about lifting a policy put in place during the COVID pandemic known as Title 42. That move is expected to lead to a massive surge of illegal immigrants. CBN's Matt Galka brings us that story from Washington.
Immigration front and center on Capitol Hill this week, with the Secretary of Homeland Security facing 3 different congressional committees, with many members wondering what happens when Title 42 ends.
Under this administration, our department has been executing a comprehensive strategy to secure our borders and rebuild our immigration system.
Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is facing increasing pressure from Congress while trying to make the case for the department's budget requests. Lawmakers from both sides are concerned that lifting Title 42, a pandemic policy that allowed border agents to turn away migrants, will add to an already surging border problem.
I think it's ludicrous that you're saying comprehensive and deliberate strategy since January of 2021, and yet here we are with a worsening and compounding crisis at our southern border.
I'm appalled by the fact that it has been a year since you sat before us last, and the only change regarding the situation at the southwest border is that the situation has gotten much worse.
Some Democrats are demanding a replacement plan as well.
And 42 should not be done away with until we get an immigration policy or until the CDC basically says we do not have a health crisis. And with a health crisis, we can't take any more chance of people coming undocumented and unchecked.
Mayorkas acknowledged preparing for another surge if the policy is lifted, with some estimates citing the number at an additional 18,000 people daily. The secretary pointed back to lawmakers.
We inherited a broken and dismantled system that is already under strain. It is not built to manage the current levels and types of migratory flows. Only Congress can fix this.
Mayorkas gets another round of grilling on Thursday from the House Judiciary Committee. Now, this issue is expected to play a major role all year and through the midterm elections, with some Republicans even signaling that they would be in favor of impeaching Mayorkas if they take control of the chamber after November. Matt Gelka, CBN News.
Turning now to Russia's war in Ukraine, Vladimir Putin warns there will be lightning-fast retaliation if anyone from outside Ukraine tries to intervene and pose a threat to Russia. Putin avoided any specific mention of nuclear weapons, but his foreign minister said this week the risk of nuclear war is real. In the midst of the tensions over Ukraine, the U.S. and Russia did engage in a prisoner swap Wednesday, exchanging former U.S. Marine Trevor Reed for Russian pilot in jail in the U.S. on drug charges. Despite that positive note, Ukraine said today Russia's offensive in the east has picked up momentum, with several towns coming under intense attack. The brutal fighting in Ukraine has led to a flood of refugees in the last 2 months. One sister who takes care of her younger brother decided they could no longer stay in their home, and they fled to Poland, where CBN's Operation Blessing was there to help them. Take a look.
As the war raged around them in Ukraine, Anya did her best to take care of her younger brother. But eventually, the violence hit too close to home.
The other week, a missile was hit like literally in our house. It was like a massive, huge explosion. And I understood that I take care of my brother. I am responsible for my brother. So I decided it's like the best thing I can do is like to flee to the safest place possible. Sadly, there's no safe places in Ukraine anymore.
Anya took her brother and fled to Poland. Thanks to Operation Blessing partners, Anya and her brother received a meal and a hot drink, a warm place to recover from the cold, and most importantly, the hope to continue.
Human kindness is like one of the things that helped me going on. I was like going here without like knowing anything. I literally was going into the nowhere with the little money, with the little clothes and everything I have. And I don't know, I'm just so amazed by how kind people can be.
Operation Blessing took Anya and her brother to a local church partner. There they could safely recover before continuing on their journey.
I would just say enormous, a huge thank you. This means so much for every one of us. It comes so deeply from my heart. It's such a gratitude that cannot be expressed by anything. I'm so thankful.
Gratitude for human kindness. So beautiful to see in the midst of tragic times. Gordon?
That gratitude goes to you if you were part of the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. Our efforts are ongoing. We plan to be there for the duration, as long as there's need on that border, as long as the refugees have need. And then hopefully, and I'm praying that the war would end very quickly, but the rebuilding is going to take years. We want to be there for people in their time of need. If you want to help, all you have to do is call us, 1-800-700-7000. Say, I want to give to the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. You can write to us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Just put Disaster Relief Fund in the memo line of a check. You can text us, OB Crisis, to 71777, or you can go to cbn.com. Either way, do it now, 1-800-700-7000.